It's time for Pawn of the Dead.
Hello and welcome back to Pot of the Dead, the internet horror film club that nobody asked for. I am your humble curator, Nicholas, and on today's episode we are covering the 1997 psychological horror anime feature, Perfect Blue. So, as you may have noticed, there is no Natasha here. Natasha has stepped away from the podcast. She's got a busy life, and she's no longer able to fit this in. So maybe one day she'll be back. But that being said, this is the end of the film club. This is not the end of Pot of the Dead, but this is the end of the format that we had been running for going on 2 years. So what does that mean? It means still going to be putting stuff out every week. Still going to be covering movies, directors, essays here and there about different things about horror, having guests on for long stretches. Who knows, right? But all that being said, today we are covering Perfect Blue. So, 1997. I was 12, depending on what time of year it was, more than likely 11 when this came out. So I'd never heard of it. This movie had always kind of just been waiting in the wings. I'd always heard about it. You've never seen Perfect Blue? You got to check out Perfect Blue. Blah, blah, blah. All the time. So this was my first time actually getting to see it. And I was captivated the entire time. It runs about an hour and a half, and I was locked in for it. Like straight up all the way through it. My only gripe with the film, really, is the ending was a little confusing. I had to look up so what happened at the end of, of Perfect Blue? And then I explained it, and I was like, oh, it unlocked some extra doors, right? So because of that, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. This movie's awesome. I love this movie so much more than I expected. Now, I do have a history of watching anime, not a lot, but that made it, I guess, a little more palatable for me. I if you've never seen anime before and this is what you first watched, I can see maybe being like, it wasn't my thing. But I've been raised on just animation in general. So I remember probably a couple years after this came out, was the first time that I had seen anime, watching Cowboy Bebop on Toonami, or it was Adult Swim, I think. But that was my introduction to anime, and then, friends watching Dragon Ball Z and all that stuff. And over the years, seeing some anime here and there, and I've got my ones that I like a lot and everything, but I'm not a seasoned anime kid or whatever you want to call it. But so today we are covering Satoshi Kon's 1997 masterpiece, Perfect Blue. If you've ever found yourself trapped between the self you show and the self you feel, or you have ever looked into a mirror and didn't quite recognize who was looking back, this film is for you. It's about celebrity, surveillance, trauma, performance, and what happens when your life becomes a script rewritten by someone else. So strap in, we're going deep, and things are about to get a little bit blurry. Let's start with a brief overview. Perfect Blue is a psychological thriller animated film directed by Satoshi Kon based on the novel Perfect Blue Complete Metamorphosis by Yoshikazu Takeuchi. The novel leans more towards a stalker horror narrative, while Kon turned it into a fractured psychological horror in the vein of Hitchcock and Argento. The story follows Mima Kirigor, a J-pop idol who leaves her music group Cham to pursue acting. Her first major role is a disturbing crime drama, a shift that angers her fans and alienates her from her support system. As she immerses herself in more mature graphic roles, she begins to lose track of who she is. A stalker named Me Mania watches her every move, and a blog, Mima's Room, recounts her daily life in excruciating, impossible detail. Soon, the boundaries between her reality, her performance, and her inner world collapse. Satoshi Kon wasn't just a director, he was an auteur. Before his debut film, he worked with Katsuhiro Otomo, the creator of Akira, and Mamoru Oshii, the creator of Ghost in the Shell, two giants of anime. His work was always about the duality between inner and outer worlds. In Perfect Blue, Kon explored the fragmentation of identity under media pressure. He used animation not just as a stylistic tool, but as a psychological one as well. That's key here. Only in animation can you seamlessly shift from one layer of consciousness to another, and Kon exploits this to its fullest. He would go on to make other reality-bending films like Millennium Actress in 2001, Tokyo Godfathers in 2003, and Paprika in 2006, which directly inspired Christopher Nolan's Inception. Sadly, Kon passed away in 2010 at the age of 46, leaving behind a short but profound legacy. Perfect Blue remains his most unnerving and transgressive work. So let's walk through some key scenes and what they mean. The photo shoot scene. One of the film's most disturbing sequences is Mima's graphic photo shoot. We see her cry as the camera flashes, a moment that perfectly captures the commodification of her image. She's consenting, but reluctantly, coerced by the idea of fame. As a media scholar, Susan J. Napier writes, the exploitation of Mima's body is directly tied to her psychological unmooring. It's performative violation, and it fractures her sense of self. The essay scene on the set of Double Bind. A fictional essay scene with her acting job causes genuine trauma. Even though it's fake, the emotional impact is real. Kon holds long, uncomfortable takes here to blur that boundary. The crew cheers when the scene is over, but Mima lies on the ground shattered. The performance becomes indistinguishable from real abuse. You also have the mirror scene. Mima sees her reflection talking back to her, only it's not her. It's her old idol self smiling, taunting, light on her feet saying, "You're not the real Mima." This doubles as the central metaphor of the film. She's being haunted by the version of herself the public prefers. Like that's crazy to think about, right? As you grow, as you get older, you change. The idea that for every person that has met you or that has seen you, there's a different version of you. And that's kind of what this movie plays on. No one really knows who you are except you, but everybody expects the you that they know, right? So let's talk about themes, because Perfect Blue isn't just a horror movie. It's oh my God, my brain is fried today. It's a dissertation on identity. It's about surveillance culture. Even in 1997, Kon anticipated the age of internet voyeurism. The Mima's Room blog represents how fans or even stalkers can hijack a person's life. It's also an early depiction of social media's invasive intimacy long before platforms like Twitter or Instagram. Media theorist Henry Jenkins calls this the participatory culture of celebrity, where fans no longer just watch, they construct the celebrity's identity. And that's where you start getting these parasocial relationships, right? Where like someone online thinks they know you and you don't know them, but they've seen all the stuff that you've done because you post and you post. It's very unnerving. I've had that happen before where I've had like an internet acquaintance over years from bands and stuff, and then they're just kind of like, "Oh yeah, no, blah blah blah. I saw you did this. I saw," and it kind of puts you on your heels a little bit. So to be to the degree of Mima, I couldn't even imagine. So another theme is the fragmented identity. Mima suffers a literal split identity, but more deeply, she embodies the Jungian concept of the persona, the mask we wear in society, and how it can consume the true self. Her idol persona becomes a ghostly aggressor, a specter of who she should be. Also, madness as performance. Kon structures the film like a stage play, with Mima constantly performing different versions of herself, and the final twist, involving her manager Rumi, reinforces this. Rumi was once an idol herself, tries to become Mima, completing the cycle of projected identity and obsession. So you might be thinking this all sounds familiar because Perfect Blue has had a major influence on global cinema and has its own cinematic lineage. So it's one of those movies that even though you may have never seen it, you've probably seen its offspring. So some of the influences that it has on it is like Alfred Hitchcock. Kon cited Vertigo and Psycho as major influences. Like Vertigo, Perfect Blue explores obsession, mistaken identity, and the idolization of women. Dario Argento, the Giallo influence is strong with this one, right? With stylish murder scenes, psychosexual tension throughout, lots of bright color flashes and stuff. So there's definite Argento vibes here. Now, what it has influenced, it's very interesting. So just a few weeks back, Natasha and I covered a film called I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Charlie Kaufman. The film's identity confusion and collapsing narrative space echoes Perfect Blue's structure. Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan, the psychological deterioration, use of mirrors, duality themes, and even shot-for-shot sequences like the bathtub scene are directly lifted from Perfect Blue. Aronofsky even bought the rights to Perfect Blue in the early 2000s to reference it legally in Requiem for a Dream. Now, when that's been brought up to him, though, about Black Swan and Perfect Blue, he said, no, it wasn't an influence. But then there's a direct receipt line that he bought the rights for it when he was doing Requiem for a Dream. So, I don't know. I always find that a little shitty. Just own up to it. So, the final act of Perfect Blue reveals that Rumi, Mima's manager, was behind the blog and the murders. She was trying to preserve the idol image of Mima, even if it meant killing the real, and I'm using air quotes, real Mima. In the climatic scene, Rumi dons Mima's Cham outfit and chases her with a knife. It's surreal and tragic. A woman destroyed by her own self-denial trying to preserve a perfect illusion. When Mima defeats Rumi, she regains some sense of reality. But the final scene where she looks in the mirror and says, "I'm real," is still ambiguous. Is she? Or is it just another performance? Kon leaves us with the horror of never fully knowing. So, final thoughts on this is Perfect Blue is many things. Celebrity, gender, power, the media, but at its heart, it's about the terror of being seen and misunderstood. In a world where everyone has a public face and a private truth, the question, who are you really, becomes not just philosophical, but existential. It asks us, what part of ourselves is real, and what's just a reflection crafted for others? What happens when the reflection fights back? So, if you guys watched Perfect Blue, email me at potofthedead666@gmail.com and let me know what you thought of Perfect Blue. So I did it. I covered the movie by myself. The crowd cheers. Everybody's happy. But I'm going to use this time a little bit to talk. I felt that this episode, this movie, like serendipitously happened at this point. So Perfect Blue is about moving from one stage to another, right? Mima's in Cham, and then she wants to be an actress. And things are expected to be what they were, but they want them to be something else, and all of this. The metamorphosis of self, or in this case, the podcast. So I'm going to use this this time to kind of talk about myself a little bit and why horror. Okay. Why horror? I've been thinking about that a little bit lately. Like, what is it about horror films that makes me want to do a podcast? What is it about horror films that make me want to share it with everybody? What is it about this podcast and horror films that make me want to continue on? And in reflection, it's mostly because I have strong connections throughout my life that horror has always been there, because it was always brought to me by two specific women in my life. So I'll start with my grandmother, Emily. She was basically my best friend for many, many years, and she was my my dealer, as it were, for two things. Well, three things technically. No judgment. That was one. She never judged me. Nothing. She just loved me unconditionally. Two, fucked up horror films at a very young age. And three, super rad martial art and samurai films. So I always remember going to her place for the weekend every once in a while, like during the summer or over like New Year's. And we would go to Hollywood Video and rent whatever. What that means is sometimes a 10-year-old named Nicholas would see films like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, or something along those lines, and forever be scarred. Other times it would be, we'd watch Friday. My grandmother introduced me to Friday with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. Not a horror film, but just to kind of give you the breadth of, she's just like, okay, let's watch it. Like, she just kind of was down for anything. She'd always had a taste for about anything. She was willing to try anything. And she passed away over 10 years ago. And when she passed, she left me her film collection, which most of it is behind me here. In that collection were some films that she never got a chance to introduce me to. So every year, I always go through and find some films that were hers that I hadn't got to watch yet. And some of them are just straight up bangers. One of the films, not a horror film, but one of the films that was in there that I never got to watch with her, she never got to introduce me to, and it's become my favorite movie of all time, is Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins. So Takashi Miike, we have covered in the past when we did Audition, but this is a samurai film that's kind of based on like the whole Seven Samurai kind of idea and everything. It's a group of 13 assassins that are going to kill this warlord, and it is a brutal samurai film. And it just tiptoes on that line of like, it could almost be considered horror into the sense of like how fucking graphic that movie is. And I would have loved to have watched that with her. The other person that was my other horror hookup is she's still here, my mother, Renee. So she was is, I don't know why I say was. That was because I was talking about my grandmother, I suppose. But she's big into like vampires and gothic horror and all of that stuff. Lots of Christian horror as well. Lots of The Exorcist, The Omen, all these things. The devil's gonna get you, right? So I was always kind of spoon fed that throughout my years, and um, she again also never judged. She'd ask questions. I remember when I started listening to Korn in middle school and stuff. She was like, "So, like I was talking to a guy at work, like, some of these songs are pretty crazy, but as long as you're not doing anything bad, it's fine." She wasn't like breaking records or anything like that, right? But she was always, bringing home John Carpenter's Vampires. I remember like my original VHS copy of that is her VHS copy that's sitting behind here. Um, so it's kind of those things where it's just like the reason horror is important to me is I have such uh, great memories of it, and it's kind of mutated and become like a love language to me where it's something that I want to share with everybody, right? Like there's, Natasha and I have had spats on the podcast and stuff, but there's never been anything that was, you know, taken to heart or anything. It's all performative, right? Horror's horror, man. You like horror? We can talk horror. Like I'm always down. Oh, you haven't seen this? You haven't seen that? Oh, it's never. You haven't seen that? Oh my god. It's never that. It's always excitement. You haven't seen that? Oh my god, we got to watch it. It's the same like horror and like metal and punk and stuff like that are like the same thing. It's like this community, right? There's this community of people that just want to share. And of course, there's going to be people that are gatekeepy and whatever. And they're just, kind of self-absorbed and they're uncomfortable in their own skin, but they've got to put on the demeanor of I know better. I've referred to myself plenty of times on here as being pretentious, but I know I'm pretentious. I just have very specific tastes. Prime example, I hated I'm thinking of ending things, and it narratively is very similar to Perfect Blue, and it's not a thing that watching Perfect Blue I knew that. I just liked Perfect Blue. I don't know. Like it just is what it is, right? But yeah. So that's why horror means a lot to me. It's why this podcast means a lot to me. I don't do this because I'm making money. I do it because I enjoy it. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And we're still going to be covering movies and stuff, right? Like I'm going to be recording an episode pretty soon, and we're going to start summer camp. So it's going to be a lot of like campy or horror films and stuff like that. But I'm no longer going to give out homework. It's going to be a lot more loosey goosey in that sense. Like there's going to be a lot more. You know what? I'm feeling this. There's going to be even like movies that just came out that are in theaters, and I'm going to try and put out episodes of that like right after I saw it with first reactions. And I'll put up spoilers in the title to let people know like, oh, I haven't seen, Bring Her Back. I don't want that ruined for me. So, okay, don't listen to the episode then. When you watch it, come back and listen to it. And then later down the road, maybe I'll revisit it and have like more of a deep dive thing. Who knows? This is it's just a podcast, right? I'm just here to fill time with you, and hopefully this gets you through your workday or gets you through your drive. But I found it very interesting though that Tasha no longer being here, and then this was the film that I had to watch, air quotes, that I was going to watch for this podcast, and how much those parallel with what this show is going to become. And I hope it becomes better. Nothing against Natasha, nothing. That's not what I'm saying. But through adversity, I can only hope that it becomes better, right? Like for you, for me. So I also am going to talk about a little bit right now. I'm working on trying to get my 150 horror films busted through for the year, and I just hit number 50 with next episode. I'm going to try and do this every week still. It might not be the best thing ever, but I'm going to try. So I hope that you guys try and hit me up with suggestions. Maybe if we get on enough online or whatever, maybe you can join the show for an episode. Cover some movies, cover some genres. I'm really excited to cover some directors. I've been wanting to do that ever since the show started back in, God, what is it, 2023? Ugh. Been down in this basement forever doing this, but it's fine because I love horror. And I hope you guys do too. So, for Pod of the Dead, I am Nicholas, and I really hope you come back and listen.